Two characters sit down at a table, throw up their elbows, and lock hands. It's a classic arm wrestling competition. The first character, we'll call him X, struggles valiantly, and during the competition, we're treated to a wonderful scene of him slugging punching bags, bursting one open with the force of his strike. The second one, character Y, simply smirks and proceeds to slam X's arm down to the table, splitting it on impact. Immediately, fans of the series proclaim character Y can hit a punching bag hard enough to bust it because, well, Y was stronger than X, who could do that, so obviously Y can too. But hang on, how does arm wrestling correlate to punching? I'm Daniel, and today we're going to look at and analyze one of the most difficult facets of battleboarding, scaling. Power scaling has been around for as long as battleboarding has been a hobby, and it's the bane of a lot of internet debate. Any subreddit or forum devoted in anime gets plenty of comments about power scalers, such as Kengan Ashura's Gowlang versus Hatsumi debates, relying on contextual scaling with striking versus grappling, or Naruto and scaling to star level Kaguya for making dimensions, or any of a number of other similar concepts that anyone remotely plugged into the hobby is aware of. So, what precisely is scaling, and why does power scaling seem to cause so many problems? Simply put, scaling is the act of conferring the properties of one character to another via feat based interaction. For instance, let's assume that I punch with 10,000 newtons of force, and another character matches my punch dead even in a fist clash. It's entirely fair and rational to say Daniel has objective data to show he hits this hard. This unknown character matched his punch. Therefore, unknown character hits with 10,000 newtons of force per punch. It's clean scaling and utilizes what's called the transitive property in math. If x equals y and y equals z, then x equals z. Daniel equals 10,000 newtons. Unknown character equals Daniel. Therefore, unknown character equals 10,000 newtons per punch. Seems easy, right? So, where's the problem come? The issue comes when there's not a direct relation and it's not clear. In just the ad hoc example that I provided, like the punching one, it's super clear, concrete, objective references that delineate a very specific relationship. But in a lot of power scaling, it doesn't exist. A noteworthy example to give some thought. On Versus Battle Wiki, all of the god tier characters, the very pinnacle of power for their verse, in One Piece, scale to being multi-continental in damage output, all from scaling in one interaction between the 10th movie antagonist, Shiki the Golden Lion, and an island which he makes float with his devil's fruit power. Now, based on the fact that the author is Shiro Oda, stated in an SBS interview where fans send in questions and he answers, he stated that Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard, possesses, quote, one of the strongest Paramecia devil fruits. Given that Shiki the Golden Lion used a Paramecia fruit to remove gravity's effect from an island, the wiki proceeded to claim that Whitebeard should be able to affect that much mass or replicate the energy it would require to float a giant island. Everyone that Whitebeard has interacted with gets the scaling regardless because, well, they fought and Whitebeard claimed this person was strong. Or for the character Odin, for instance. Or, well, this person said Whitebeard is one of the few who can give him a good fight for Kaido. Or, well, this character harmed Whitebeard, so it scales for the Marine Admirals. And that's all completely crappy logic, if you couldn't tell by now. Why? Well, there's no direct interaction, as I point out. You never see Whitebeard's ability clash against Shiki's and stalemate it. That leads to what's called a hasty generalization. Hasty generalization is an informal fallacy whereby you utilize incomplete evidence paired with inductive reasoning to form a rushed conclusion that isn't representative of the full truth of the matter. In math terms, and a hasty generalization would be the equivalent of having 100 data points on a graph, and you only look at a cluster of 10 of them and see a clear pattern. Thus, you proclaim that pattern applies to all the data. In the One Piece example, the statement, one of the strongest paramecia abilities is assumed to apply to any form of offensive energy-based calculation of Shiki's fruit capabilities, bearing in mind his ability simply causes things to float passively without any effort from him, might I add. It's assumed to imply Whitebeard's powers directly one-to-one incur that transitive potency. As a result, they conclude that Whitebeard can hit with as much energy as it takes to levitate a gigantic island-shaped mass. The scaling breaks down from the presumption the word strong implies what they believe, since Shiki doesn't actually personally input any energy into the equation. His fruit just cancels gravity's effect and floats things like a balloon. How that's strength or force, I don't know. But Whitebeard actually creates earthquakes, which are force, so how are you relating the two? For two, one of the strongest is the phrasing used. Is Shiki's the absolute strongest fruit? Is it the weakest? We don't know because Oda doesn't comment on that. So, how do you scale when you have an unknown variable in the transitive transaction? There's no direct measure of reference to adequately compare it to. You don't get x equals y equals z because the equal sign in any part of this equation could be an equal or less than, greater to. With versus battle wiki simply assuming the language used implies a strict greater than relation, with Whitebeard being superior to Shiki. Another layer of damage to that scaling is the very notion of how strength is used and defined. Lifting an island as opposed to creating earthquakes just aren't comparable, like in the punching analogy. If I point to two characters, one whose power is solely the ability to lift any building in the world, let's say, and the other character I point to, they create a giant fireball that incinerates the building thrower in one touch. And the author of this reality states the power to create fireballs is among the greatest powers in this world. Are you going to sincerely sit there and tell me the fireball thrower can throw any building? Or that his fireballs can incinerate all buildings in the world from that singular interaction? Since, after all, he scales above the building thrower by word of God and beat him in a fight, right? No, you shouldn't tell me that because that's a hasty generalization, and there's not nearly enough evidence to conclude that. Same as with One Piece. Simply put, a lot of issues with scaling come from oversimplifications. Like, the author said this power is among the strongest, so all calcs and the other powers automatically apply, and that results in rushed conclusions, i.e., the fireball throwing can destroy the Taj Mahal. Scaling requires an explicit interaction that interweaves concretely and has all the same vectors relevant. For instance, just because I could punch Mike Tyson in the head from behind and knock him out doesn't mean I hit as hard as Mike Tyson at all. Nor does it mean I'm as fast, as durable, etc. as Mike Tyson. But a lot of power scaling does exactly that. Where, oh, Naruto hit Kaguya, therefore Kaguya and Naruto have the same amount of damage. It ignores the greater context to focus on those 10 little data points instead of the 100 data entire picture. It happens plenty often where a character punches someone off guard in the face, harms them, even though they no sold a body blow magnitudes higher in output. So now they're scaled to that higher output blow. You need concrete evidence, though, to scale, as any untoward contextual assumptions weaken your case. If you want to debate better, only make strong claims based on directly relevant interactions. X character tanked a body blow explicitly compared to a tank shell. Y character hits them the exact same way and kills them. Therefore, Y character hits harder than a tank shell. Simple, forward, direct, and clean scaling. Anything involving, well, if we assume, or this should be comparable to, automatically becomes weak because you're making an inference that might not be there. Which, hey, honestly, if you're debating, you have something to support that claim, right? But just because someone else agrees with your claim doesn't make it right. You have to look at the greater picture. And don't do the silly stuff like, well, their durability should be comparable to their striking strength just because. Physicals don't really work like that. Just because your fist can handle the third law of motion doesn't mean your face handles your fist. But hey, what do I transitively know? I'm just X, this channel is just Y, and Z is just some battleboard theory. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, don't forget to like it, hit that bell, make sure you're subscribed so that you see any new videos coming out, and drop me a comment. What do you agree with? What do you think I get wrong? Why is it the Kaguya isn't just star level, but is actually a universe buster? That's only a half joke. I've had that debate a lot, unfortunately. Thank you and have a great day.